Alright, landlord, I want my fucking house back. No, none of that shit. Get out. This is my house. Oh, you think that shit's gonna work on me? You're outgunned, motherfucker. Bitch, and let's make it double. Bam, double, bitch. Now get the fuck out. The Pokemon franchise is one that has a stranglehold on mankind. You show anyone a Pokemon, they'll probably know what it is. Like, hold on a second. Who is this?
Agumon!
You're an idiot and I'm holding a gun. Do not test me.
It's a little weird to think how universal Pokemon has become. They have their finger in every pie. Role-playing game, trading card game, TV show, live-action movie, open-world adventure game, puzzle games for white moms, gacha games for people who really enjoy fucking up their lives, the Chinese government. But one thing I think they should have done a long time ago was a proper fighting game. I mean, it's a perfect fit, right? The Pokemon already fight each other. That's like the entire gimmick of the franchise. But no, Pokemon decided they'd make a bad racing game, photography, and a pet simulator before they had the Pokemon actually throw down, because I guess having 10 Pokemon on the Smash Bros. Roster wasn't enough for me. Now picture this, it's 2015 and you're scrolling through GameXplain's YouTube feed and you see something about a Pokemon arcade fighting game in Japan. And from that point forward, you start following the game extremely closely, praying that it would come to America.
If you can tell by how extremely specific that description was, it wasn't supposed to be relatable. That was my experience when the game was coming out, and considering what we got eventually, I feel like it was a bit overhyped.
Pokkén Tournament was the game I was talking about.
No, really?
Now that title alone might remind you of another fighting game. And yeah, it's the one starring the guy from Smash Bros. No, not that guy from Smash Bros. Getting warmer. There you go. Starting as an arcade game in Japan, people were wondering if it would ever come over to the West, specifically on the Wii U, people being me. The game was also developed by Bandai Namco, who handles Tekken and parts of Smash Bros. If there's any developer that I'd give the reins for a Pokemon fighting game, they'd definitely be one of them. They know their way around fighting games pretty well. Over time, characters and other shit like that would be announced for this thing, and I was endlessly envious that a Wii U port didn't seem likely and I'd probably never get to play this game. Funny how things turn out. A year later, in 2016, the game gets a worldwide release on consoles, and I was pumped. Looking back, I can't really tell you why though, because the only fighting game I'd played at that point was Smash 4, and that was Baby's first fighting game. Baby's first Smash game, too. The game released on March 18th, 2016, and I bought it pretty close to that point. I don't have the proof, though. Yeah, I sold my Wii U copy because I was in dire need of $2 to pay for drugs and alcohol, but I do have the purchase bonus, a Shadow Mewtwo amiibo card. Its only purpose is to unlock Shadow Mewtwo early, and you can only play as him for one full day before scanning him again. But it's cool art, I'll give him that. Kinda wish it was an actual Pokemon card that functioned as an amiibo, but well, that's a talk for another day.
Alright, let's jump into Pokkén Tournament. But for reference, I'm only going to be using footage from the DX version of the game on the Nintendo Switch, because I don't own the Wii U version anymore and it's way easier to get footage of the one on the Switch. But for this section, we are only going to be talking about the game as it was on the Wii U. We'll get into the stuff that DX added later on. But if you see anything that was exclusive to the DX version in this footage, I don't give a fuck. So you're going to have to deal with it. Let's jump into it.
The game opens up with a slick-ass CGI intro. I really liked this when I was younger. It really helped show that this is the best Pokemon has looked on a console up until this point. Hell, it'll probably still be that way for a while, judging by how the series has been going on at this point. Bandai Namco really knows how to make good-ass looking Pokemon games. They also did new Pokemon Snap, and that game looks phenomenal as well. If Game Freak continues to outsource their games to other studios like they did with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, I'd love to see what Bandai Namco could do with the main series. And it's not just graphics either, the Pokemon are so lively in their animations. It's kind of insane, and it breaks my shallow heart to know that mainline Pokemon probably won't ever reach this level of quality. Getting back on topic though, the game is a mix between an arena fighter and a 2D fighter. The game constantly switches between these two modes. The arena phase is open and fairly docile, but the 2D phase is where the meat of the gameplay happens and where most battles will get exciting and be decided. I don't mind the arena phases as I think they help break up the gameplay, but I can understand why some people would prefer one or the other more. You also switch between the two enough where I think it becomes a non-issue, though I prefer the 2D phase more, as that's where you can do combos and get really fancy with your movement. Speaking of, every character's movesets are super unique. It's not like Smash where every character's moveset is mapped around the same buttons. No, every character is extremely distinct from one another. It's not enough to where it's confusing, but each character takes different button combinations to execute their attacks. I know that makes it sound like it's more complicated than it actually is, but trust me, these characters are pretty simple to get down. So let's talk about them. There's a decent selection here, 14 characters to start with and 2 unlockable, those being the 2 Mewtwo's. And the picks they chose were pretty good. Of course, you have the iconic Pokemon that have to be in every spin-off, and the Pokemon that are just no-brainers to have in a fighting game. There's also some pretty weird picks in here that are really creative and breaks in. Am I salty that Greninja got the boot for this fucking thing? Yes, because it's one of my favorite Pokemon, but minus that inclusion, all these Pokemon are excellent choices, and they fit into one of 4 fighting styles. Standard being the basic all-around fighters, the jack-of-all-trades, master and none-type characters. Power being the heavy hitters that soak up damage, but also being fairly slow. Speed being fast and nimble, but pretty weak. And technical being the wild cards, home to some of the goofier characters. The individual Pokemon's movesets are pretty varied too. You have Lucario and Pikachu, who are your basic starter characters. And it makes sense. They teach you how to play the game and are pretty well balanced. I mean, Lucario has a sex kick after all. That's like the essential fighting game move right there. Also, Pikachu is literally just a Tekken character. A lot of his moves and animations are ripped straight from Heihachi. There's Machamp, who's a pretty standard powerhouse. Don't get grabbed by him though, it'll fuck your entire day up. Gardevoir is your primary ranged fighter. Gengar's really good at fucking with you, and his entire moveset changes when he gets his synergy boost. I forgot to mention it, but when you fill this meter, you can activate your synergy boost, which heals you, boosts your attack power, and lets you do your super attack. And since this game came out when Mega Evolution was the new big gimmick, you better believe they took advantage of it. Gengar's super sucks you into hell. That's pretty awesome. And of course, you know that the Pokemon Company couldn't help themselves. They not only put 1, but 2 Pikachus in this game. Since Gen 6 was the newest at the time of this game's release, not only did they throw Mega Evolution in here, but they also decided to put in Pikachu Libre from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. She's a pretty fun character, but I think I prefer regular Pikachu more. Charizard's here.
Okay, fucking cool it.
I know hating Charizard is the cool thing to do now because the Pokemon Company dick rides him like crazy, but they do the same thing with other Pokemon like Pikachu, Eevee, Greninja, and Lucario. Why? Because they're popular. I swear, it really feels like it should be obvious as to why Charizard is pushed so much, but every time people see him in anything, it suddenly feels like,
I like Charizard.
But I digress. He can fly, he can hit hard, and thrust into people. That sounded better in my head. Blaziken's another pretty standard fighter with a penis who can glide and kick a lot. In essence, he's just a more fun Machamp. Chandelure's a weird addition, but it's a welcome one. It can swing around and shit. Weavile's a fast rushdown character who has a lot of slash moves and can camp in the air for some fucking reason. Garchomp has a cool digging move that he can use and is an absolute bitch to fight. And there's Braixen, who's a mage type character. Still don't know why she's in the game, but whatever. Now the last 2 characters are the best characters because they're the ones I main. And I also know a lot more about them than the other characters too. Suicune and Sceptile. This is where it's at. I'm so happy Sceptile is here, dude. He's probably my favorite starter Pokemon, and he complements my playstyle a lot. Acting like a mischievous little shit who can grab you from across the map, hang in the air long enough to fill your synergy gauge, and just delete you after it. Love it. Then there's Suicune, who's probably the most autistic character in this game. So it's a perfect fit for me! Now, Suicune isn't necessarily a good character, but there's one thing in this character's kit that I'm certain was put in here to make whoever's playing Suicune will make a genuine enemy for life. Here's what you do.
大家好，中国，现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋，但是速度与成就，老公嘛。
Pick Suicune, your friends will love it. Oh yeah, and there's also Mewtwo and Shadow Mewtwo. I don't really care about regular Mewtwo, and Shadow Mewtwo can single-handedly put an end to the 1 billion lions debate. So those are all the characters. Again, a nice and varied selection, but they aren't the entirety of your moveset, as you get to pick a support Pokemon, which are also split up into 3 categories: Attack, Enhance, and Disrupt. Attack is exactly what you fucking think. You get a free attack that can help you counter an attacker. Enhance can buff your fighter in a variety of ways, like healing you, increasing your attack or defense, make all your attacks critical hits, and even protect you from damage. Then there are Disrupts, which don't necessarily attack, but they tend to fuck with your opponent. The supports are great. They add some nice spice to the match and can get you out of a tight spot if you're sucking ass. But you have to pick from predetermined pairs, which kinda sucks. I know why they did this. Pokken used to be an arcade game, and making you pick your individual supports would have made you spend way more time on the character select screen, and it also might have to do with balancing. But whatever, I'm fine with it as it is, but I'd prefer it if you could pick any 2 Pokemon here. Now onto the stages. Each one is pretty darn simple.
That one was pretty white, Tyler.
Fuck you! They're all pretty basic arenas with no hazards or anything. The big thing about these arenas are the environments, and they look beautiful. Ruins for the Reggie Trio, a theme park themed around Diggersby, a boat with a bunch of fucking Magikarp just bouncing around all over it, and the middle of a city. It's all great. And the music is pretty good too. It really blends into the background while you're fighting, so you don't really notice it all that much, but I took a listen to the OST, and there's some great stuff in here.
Now, there's also a story mode, but I don't think it's anything that worthwhile. It's honestly just really worth a shrug, I'll be completely honest.
Okay, I say it's a story mode, but it's really just a bunch of battles against random trainers that are unbelievably piss easy. Its only real purpose is to unlock Mewtwo and Shadow Mewtwo. I don't care about either, so we can just ignore this mode entirely. Overall, Pokkén Tournament is really solid. It's super fun, has a wide variety of characters, and some really in-depth controls. Definitely a really damn good fighting game that you should pay some attention to. But that's not all there is to it, as this game refused to go away after it was done. The arcade version actually ended up adding a new characters for a little bit. It added 4 new ones. Scizor, who's a powerhouse and has a cool gimmick where he can use Sword Stance to power up his attacks. Darkrai, who has a lot of attacks that rely on setting things up, a really cool character. Krogunk, whose entire playstyle is just...
We do a little trolling.
Seriously, this character is so dumb. I love it. I was playing one game and I just completely stalled my opponent out by throwing rocks at him. Then there's Empoleon, who... cheats. Remember those super attacks? Well, you can completely block them by shielding the hit. Cheap? Yes, but it balances things out, because if you have time to react to it, you're not going to take the hit.
Now Empoleon takes that, and he knocks you over, kicks you while you're down, calls you a variety of colorful words that I refuse to repeat, and makes you feel like a real fucking shitbag. It's really awesome. If you're playing against people who don't know this, you'll really piss them off. So you should try it, it's really, really funny.
Aside from those 4 characters though, nothing else came to Pokkén, and the Wii U version didn't even get those characters. And with the next Nintendo console due out in 1 year, it doesn't seem like there's anything on the horizon for this game. That's what I thought at least, and it sucked, but I was willing to let it go. It's on the Switch too. Pokkén Tournament came to the Switch on September 22nd, 2017. It was actually one of the first Wii U ports, which I always forget. You probably forgot that this was in year 1 of the Switch's life, but regardless, it's great to see. Pokkén Tournament DX was announced in a Pokemon Direct, and it's a beefed up, complete version of Pokkén Tournament. So let's take a look and see what's different. First of all, the 4 characters that were added to the arcade version are here and accounted for, so that's nice. Also, Mewtwo and Shadow Mewtwo are here from the start, no unlockables or anything like that. And to round out the roster, there's a completely brand new character exclusive to the port, Decidueye from Gen 7. I absolutely love the Alola region, and I've made it no secret that Sun is one of my favorite Pokemon games, so it makes me really happy to see Decidueye here, as it was the starter I picked in that game, and he's one of my favorites here. Am I still salty that Greninja isn't in? Yes, absolutely, but Decidueye is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I've also had Sceptile from the start, so I think I'm okay. Decidueye's playstyle is really fun too. He has 2 different modes that he can switch to mid-match. He can fly and really exceeds at long-range combat. Definitely one of my favorite characters to play as. The port also adds 1 brand new support set, Litten and Ew! In all fairness, even though this mistake made it in, the ability it grants is pretty cool. It gives you a double jump, and there's also a new stage, Thalia Beach, which has been my favorite song in the whole game, and it includes a lot of Gen 7 Pokemon in the background. Gen 7 was brand new by the time DX came out, so it kinda felt like they crammed in as much Alola representation as they could. Not a bad thing by any means, though. Other than those additions, that's really it. Sorry, I lied to you again. This port adds team battles, and oh my god, these are so much fun. I swear, this is my preferred way to play the game. You get to pick 3 Pokemon at the beginning of the match, and when you die, you get to pick another. It's not unique in the slightest, but holy shit, does it add so much more to the game. Though, part of me wishes that you could switch out your character mid-match. I know that would have been a lot more work to implement for such a simple port, but I think being able to switch on the fly would add so much more to this mode. It's still great without it though. They added wireless play so you can play with people locally, and each person gets their own screen. And they also added this daily challenge mode, which is kinda boring. And yeah, that's about it. I know not a lot was added here, but honestly, the game being on Switch was good enough, honestly. Think about it. The game started out being an arcade game only in Japan. Nobody other than those guys had access to it. Then it came to the Wii U, which was great. But then you realize it's the fucking Wii U. Nobody owned one. And nobody wanted to play it either. Pokkén coming to the Switch was only a good thing because a lot of people own one. And the Switch prides itself on its instant multiplayer gimmick, making Pokkén a perfect fit. And it's Pokemon. Pokemon sells like fucking hotcakes. So now this game is on the Switch, and it's the best it's ever been. Back on Wii U, I didn't really get to play it that much because, shocker, I didn't have many friends, and I sure as hell didn't have friends who owned a Wii U or wanted to play on mine. The Switch being a more mainstream console definitely helped me play it with a lot more people. I remember one day in PE, instead of playing volleyball or whatever stupid shit they were doing, me and a couple of my classmates were all playing together, rotating around until class ended. This game holds a very special place in my heart, and I won't forget it. They made DLC for it as well.
Jesus, I've tried to end this video like twice already, but they just keep giving me shit to talk about. Like, how much more are you gonna cram into this fucking game?
Yes, in 2018, it was announced that Pokken would be getting 2 DLC packs, including 1 new character and 1 new support set. The first of which being Aegislash. Aegislash is another Chandelure pick for me. Pokemon you wouldn't think to find in a fighting game, but they really run with it. Aegislash is a really cool character. It can switch between its blade and shield form just like in the main series, and I really have a lot of fun playing this character. Definitely one of my favorites. The support set it came with was Mega Rayquaza and Mimikyu. Mimikyu being a Disrupt and Mega Rayquaza being a super powerful attack that you can only use once. Nothing too crazy. The second character was Blastoise. Safe pick, no doubt, but it's cool to see him in here regardless. By nature of him being a really fat guy, he's a tank. He hits hard and soaks up damage, but doesn't move very fast. I don't really like playing as him that much, but it's nice to have this playstyle finally be added. We didn't really have a tanky character until now. The support set here was Mew and Celebi. Mew's is the same as Victini's, though Celebi can force a phase shift automatically whenever, which is pretty cool. But you wanna know what isn't cool? The price. $15 for 2 fighters. If I wasn't such a big Pokemon fan, I'd be angrier, but I bought it, so who am I to say what's right or wrong here? I'm a slut and I'm proud of it, damn it.
But after the DLC, there was nothing else for Pokken. I guess it makes sense because the game only sold 1 million copies, and it doesn't really make that much sense to support a game that only a small percentage of the Switch user base owns, but it still sucks. I would have liked to see some more DLC characters, though. I feel like Snorlax could have been a great pick, another tanky character, kind of like Blastoise. Crocodile could have been really cool as well, because there was like barely any Unova rep in the game. Like, Chandelure was the only Gen 5 Pokemon that you could play as. And, of course, Greninja. Like, come on, it's the most popular Pokemon. Just put Greninja in there. Honestly, though, I would have taken anything, because, with all the DLC, the character select screen looks like this. That's fucking foul. But alas, nothing else came to Pokken. Which sucks, but I can understand it. So that means I can end the video now, right? No, it doesn't, because there's one more thing I would like to talk about. And it really disappointed me when I heard about it, so I feel like someone has to talk about it.
Last year was the 2022 Pokemon World Championships, and unfortunately, this would be the last time Pokken would make an appearance at Worlds, effectively putting an end to Pokken in the public eye. I mean, outside of the DLC, it wasn't really given anything else otherwise, but Pokken had become a staple at Worlds for a while, so it's really sad to see the plug be pulled. Especially when you realize that it's getting shafted for Unite. So that leaves the Pokken community to try and keep it going, and considering how niche this game is and how small the community is, I don't think we're gonna see Pokken on a super huge scale like what Worlds was able to give it ever again. But damn it, are these guys devoted as hell. They've been through a lot. Their game being put on a console that nobody played to trying to keep this scene alive through COVID. I think that this game will live on in its own little bubble, but that's my point. Pokken won't really reach anywhere outside that bubble. It was never really that big in the first place, and it really sucks to see that it'll probably never reach the level that I know it deserves to be at. I don't really have the time in this video to go in-depth about the competitive scene, and I'm not super qualified to do so anyways, but I'll leave this video I found by Action Esports in the card above and in the description. Check it out if you're interested, it's a really good watch.
It's a massive shame. Pokken is a really, really fucking fun game, and I've had a lot of great memories with it. A while back, when it was free on Nintendo Switch Online, I got one of my online friends into the game, and we played a little bit of it. I got him somewhat interested in Pokemon again, though that faded away because Scarlet and Violet came out, like, weeks later, and, you know. Hell, like I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of fun playing this game with IRLs. It's not the most popular multiplayer game, like, I don't think anyone's like, hey, you want to play some Pokken Tournament anymore? No, but for what it was, this was a great game to play with friends. I never expected this game to last forever. No game does, and this game was incredibly niche from the start. But the fact that it lasted as long as it did, the fact that it got DLC, and the community being so strong and passionate about it, it makes me happy. I can only hope with this game winding down in the public eye that another Pokemon fighting game could come out and fulfill that itch that needs to be scratched. Did you like the video? Well, shit, does that mean we get our house back?
Are we seriously doing this right now? Is that all it takes? You just had to talk about a stupid game to get our fucking house back?
Apparently. Wow, that works out perfectly for us. We didn't have to kill anyone. We didn't even have to get remotely violent. We didn't have to threaten anybody. You know, this works out perfectly for everybody. Except for this. Oh, whatever, I'll sort that out on my own time. That's future me's problem. Well, thanks for watching, everybody!